The mess of wires and connectors hanging around is such an eyesore, don't you think? Don't worry, after this guide, you will never have to look at them again. Today I'm gonna show you how easy it is to merge your switches into the wall, hiding all that clutter inside. So first things first, let us have a look at the thickness of the walls because that makes a difference in how your switches will merge through. As you can see, the timber wall is so much slimmer than the other walls. It is even thinner than the original legacy wall. If you would place a switch against the timber wall, you can see that there is no way for us to merge the switch and hide the wires and the connectors. It is simply too large. Because of that, we're gonna have to skip this one and just focus on these three walls right here: the concrete, the alloy and the stone walls. For this guide, we will be using both the wire and the universal adjacency glitch. Therefore, we should prepare ourselves a little palette of items which we will be needing for that. So let us start with building a short wall here. We also need a half short wall. And the next thing we need is a light floor, which we can snap here. The last thing we need is an electrical switch. We can use any switch for this, even the floor switch. It will just be a little bit larger than the other switches, but you can use whatever you want. You can use the logic gates, the proxy switch, all of that will work. But for now, let us just take the button and place it here as well. And this will be our palette, our painting palette, so to speak, which will be used for building. So the plan is to build our switches here and then afterwards have this wall overlap our switches. The first step for this is to use the light floor to create a snap point to work from. So let us duplicate the light floor and then store it into our wire cache menu. We can do this by pressing the buttons for both toggle wire and edit build. Take note of the place wire icon in our shortcut menu, which means we store the item properly in the cache. Now we can duplicate the short half wall here and position it against the stone wall. For this example, I'm gonna position it here. And now we just need to do a wire glitch, which will be replacing the short wall with the light floor in our cache. When the light floor has been placed, the connector should be facing the wrong way. We don't want it to face sideways, we want it to face it inside the build. So let us snap another light floor here and rotate it so that the marker line is on the right side of it. This should result in the connector to be facing properly towards the bottom of our screen. We can now delete the original light floor. Now that we have a connector in the right place and orientation, we can now duplicate the half short wall here and then wire glitch it onto the connector of our light floor. The short wall should now be snapped onto the connector below our light floor. So now we have that in place, we can remove the light floor. Now we go into our building menu and we select the small timber wall here, as we want to adjacency to the short one next to it. Once we glitched that one in, we can now snap two short walls against the top and the bottom side. Then we can delete this one, duplicate this and snap it against the short wall below the floor. And now we can snap another short wall here, which provides us with three nice and equal locations. As this one is above the wall, we won't be using it now. Let us now duplicate the short wall and snap it against here, so that we can now focus on this first section here. Now we can duplicate the switch and store it in our wire cache. As you can see, we did it wrong this time, so let us try this again. Now we duplicate the short wall and move it to the side here. Once located, simply do a wire glitch. That will now replace the short wall with a switch, perfectly centered as where the short wall would have been placed. And we can do this now again here as well. Let us now delete these, and we will now use the short wall here to glitch the switch in the center here. So just duplicate the switch, store it in the cache, duplicate the short wall here, locate it here, and make sure it is following the short wall properly, and then wire glitch it in. And we can do this now with the remaining positions. And here we go. 6 switches perfectly placed and lined up. We can now duplicate this wall here. Let us quickly delete this one. And then we snap the wall in place. And voila, the switch is perfectly merged inside the wall. The connectors are also inside the walls, so when we would connect wires, there would be no sign of them. The problem now is that if I would remove this wall, the switches will be removed with it. So it is smarter to do the wiring and connecting beforehand, and once you are done, then merge a wall over it, hiding all the wire network. Now, if you only need one switch in your wall, we can do that by simply storing the light floor in the cache, duplicating the short wall here, snapping it on the side of the wall here, and then wire glitch the light floor instead. And of course, like before, we need to rotate the light floor so the connector is facing the right way. If you would now snap the stone floor in place, you can see the connector is nicely located inside the wall. So the only thing left now is to wire glitch a switch on the connector. After deleting the light floor, a switch is sitting nice and snug inside your wall. The same goes for the alloy wall, and they are actually even more nicely hidden in it. Now, the concrete wall is definitely thinner than the stone wall, and that results in the connector sticking out slightly. It also means that the wire will be visible even if you pull it deeper inside the wall. So for the concrete walls, this is not the ideal solution, but there are some other ways. So let us store the switch in our cache menu, duplicate the short wall here, and position it in between the walls here. And when we simply wire glitch, the switch will now be placed sideways, but the connectors are nicely lined up with the wall. So if I duplicate this wall and move it over here, the switch looks like this modern and fancy touch switch, and it's possible to activate the switch as you can see it lighting up when pressing it. Doing this technique with the stone and metal wall will however not have the same result, as the switch completely disappears inside it. I can still activate them, but no one can see them. You can of course, thank you Zane, use decals to mark the switches so it's easy to find them back. I do see some fun applications for these hidden switches. Anyway, these were a few ways to merge and even hide switches into the wall. It is definitely a cleaner look, and you don't need to worry about any wires and other clutter messing with the looks. I hope you enjoyed it and perhaps learned some new techniques. Thank you for watching. Maybe one of these videos can trigger your interest. Don't forget to hit that like on your way out. This was Beeblebum. Goodbye for now.